This realization completely changed my life. It enabled me to forgive anyone, and it obliterated my anxiety by allowing me to accept myself and, ironically, feel free again. Is the person ever truly to blame, or as an isolate, ever truly better than someone else? No, because no one has control over the conditions that we can talk about, which result in the expression of who we take a person to be. If, as an experiment, in this moment we can be more aware of our conscious experience, who we truly are, than thinking about it, we can notice that we are in no meaningful control over that which we take to be outside of our body and mind, nor that which we consider to take place inside of our body and mind. I can't will anything of the landscape outside of my body and mind and have it make a meaningful difference without moving my body. And if I pay really close attention, of which is possible to develop through meditation, it is also obvious that the concept of will breaks down on the level of oneself inside their body and mind with their thoughts too. To feel like you are consciously directing your will, your thoughts, to feel like you are the thinker of your thoughts, is what it feels like to not be mindful of your present thoughts. Whatever explanation you have to justify any decision you've ever made likely relies on a combined composition of external factors, of which you obviously had no control over their occurrence in your life, with, if unaccountable for by the first type of factors, an unexplainable occurrence and sequence of thoughts and reasoning within your mind. You may consider yourself accountable for a sequence of reasoning leading up to a decision, but I still couldn't hold you accountable for the choice, because if you were the determining factor of a choice above and beyond any other conditions of this world that we can talk about, then your choice is as good as random. To argue otherwise is to suggest that you somehow exist independently outside of this space and time in a completely disconnected way. In other words, the you in question performs essentially without reasons, randomly. And truly random events, which very well could be an element in the unfolding of your reality, are by definition non-personal and, to the main point, don't tell us anything more about you. When we take a closer than usual look at our condition, conceptually or experientially, there's no meaningful model that fundamentally accommodates free will. It is an extraneous, unnatural, and an unnecessary idea. How can you argue a meaningful and independent free will from a reality that you are so completely embedded in and can't escape? This realization was confronting when I first thought about it, mainly because at large, many people assume this free will conceptualization of reality is a fundamental truth or law of reality. But even on a slight reflection, there's space to see things clearer. Upon reflection, most of my day does seem to happen quite automatically. In fact, it is only upon conjuring and contemplating a specific decision for the sake of this examination that I can get confused for a moment. Because sometimes, when fairly I'm confused, I think it feels like I have free will. But I feel a lot of things that don't describe reality accurately. And as I've already mentioned, in these times it is because I am failing to notice that I am thinking about my being rather than taking it for what it is. When you don't pay close attention to your experience in the present moment, it's currently quite natural and normative to imagine and entertain different possibilities about the future and think that they are all as valid, whilst failing to notice that this moment, where you are, is already determined and that there is no control over it. This is actually a liberating discovery. Effectively, it is fundamentally erroneous to take any experience in this life personally. So goodbye to all your self-hate and blame towards others. And to get where we want to go, which is still what we want, we're only left with clearer and more effective conversations to be had about the practical conditions of any situation sought. If you feel really disorientated by this idea, you might just not think about it. That's a condition to be considered that may temporarily assist you in living a less disturbed life. Generally though, thinking about what we want and the choices we will need to experience to get there, as well as the right conditions and fortune of that which we would typically consider to be obviously outside of our control, is only a subtle but importantly a more practical shift in how we think about our lives that concludes with none of the defects of taking things personally. How things make us feel remains a practical thing to be considered. Putting people in jail, and in fact all decisions, are only easier if we align to reality and remove the taking things personally element out of the equation. If there is no free will, we all must be fundamentally equal, and thus there is an emphasized motivation to make our world reflect this, as long as these unfair conditions apparently don't. Any conversation about the future should start with the principle that we all fundamentally deserve the best, and then we must negotiate as per the pragmatics. This is a radical topic and I'm sure this makes sense. However, I'm still working out my articulation of the idea. This conversation is uniquely tricky because of the nature of its confrontation in opposition to what people take to be fundamental truths of reality. People aren't prepared to think that their stories about themselves and their choices are respectively only descriptions and imaginings of the future extrapolated out from what actually is the fundamental reality or truth. And even when there is insight, sometimes by force of habit, it's a struggle for some people to remain following along. To learn how to not just understand this insight, but recognize the reality of it experientially, this is the main aim of my channel. Because to be able to do this is to most immediately access and embody the freedom of this insight, that nothing is personal, and to feel that radically free. If you're still with me, honestly, I think we're meant for each other. So please subscribe. If you believe these ideas are as beneficial, transformative, and healing for people as I do, liking the video and leaving a comment are the conditions that will really help here. I genuinely hope that your life is wonderful and that we create the conditions to do that for everyone else too.